Yeah. So basically, John Stamos is promoting a book and he is talking a lot about what he learned from the book. And one of the things he worked through was his anger at his previous wife, Rebecca Romaine. And they've never talked since they divorced. And he said he just hated her for a long time. And he's moving through that and is finding his way through that and finding gratitude for their time together. But everybody, I've heard 3 interviews with him now. You hear the same people on every podcast, who's ever promoting their book. And he has said the same thing. He has said, I felt demasculated, or as you just shared, emasculated by her. Is it really emasculated? That feels positive. So unnormal.
I know. I'm pretty sure it's been a while since I checked, but I remember being like, okay, I'm missing this. I should know what this word means. And I remember Googling it. They're like emasculation, demasculation are the same.
Are the same thing. Okay. So I felt like I was listening to Chelsea Handler's podcast and she dug into that a little bit, but most everybody else did not. So do you have any thoughts about that, or do you want me to launch it?
No, I hear this because I work with a lot of men, and there's times when a man's like, gosh, my wife is emasculating me. And I need to own this for a second. I get reactive when I hear anybody say that. Some of it's because I consider myself a feminist and I live with a wife and I have 3 daughters, and it's a little tricky, and we'll get into the nuances of it. But I feel like as a man, I would need to give somebody permission to emasculate me. So I don't feel, if I'm in a good conscious place and I'm confident in what it means to be a man, and I'm displaying what mature masculinity looks like, no matter what you say to me or a stranger says to me, I need to buy into the idea that I am being demasculated. And if I'm like, no, actually, this is what I think manhood is, then I feel like it's disempowering to say somebody's demasculating me. I don't know if I'm explaining that really.
You are. And I think there's many versions of this. So sure. I think that there are definitely, we talk a lot about emotional and physical abuse, and a lot of times it's typically like women experiencing it. But of course, there are men in their marriages or in their partnerships who have experienced some kind of emotional abuse, where let's just talk about a heteronormative marriage where it's a man and a woman. If a woman is saying cruel things to her husband, or saying you need to man up, or you're not strong, or whatever it may be.
What we talked about was if you said to me, grow a pair, Todd.
Yeah.
I can see why that would hurt me. Okay.
And so there are some things that are literally, that's the whole goal, is to make you feel less than a man. Exactly. That happens. I think what he was referring to, though, and I could be wrong because John Stamos is not here, but he followed up by saying she was getting a lot of jobs. And her career was taking off while mine was ending. And that's where the whole idea of that. And then he added, this is on the Howard Stern one, he added, so I don't know if it was her fault or my fault. And I just had a moment of her career is taking off.
Why is there any fault here? I don't get it.
And maybe it's because they didn't talk about it. She didn't communicate about it. So many nuances here. We don't want to just say this is good, this is bad. But it's interesting, this whole idea of, if a woman has a bigger career or their work is taking off, or that it is somehow then that experience demasculates their partner.
And I have no room for a man saying to me, my wife makes more money than I do, so it's really demasculating. What?
Actually, you do have room for it because you hear it a lot.
I have no patience for it.
And I know you're trying to make your point, but you do a good job talking men through this. So you do have patience for it.
Yeah. But my initial reactions, first of all, why is that demasculating?
And you know the answer.
Yeah, because he's conditioned to think that if a man doesn't make more money than his wife, then he's less of a man.
Correct.
And I've never bought into that.
It's cultural conditioning. Yeah. It's like a woman being we have all this societal cultural conditioning around how things are supposed to be. And even if we decide to go beyond those things or to not allow them to dictate our lives, they creep up sometimes in ways that are unpredictable. I feel like we've always been peers since we've been together. We've both had careers, and then all of a sudden we had children and we went into really gender specific roles. I wouldn't have predicted that.
Yeah.
And we've had to work through that. And then because the thing is you personally haven't experienced it yet.
Sure.
Now, maybe you you have in some ways, because you and I are a business and I am the CEO of this business, but you are the COO or CFO or whatever.
Technically, I'm the secretary according to the IRS.
Really?
Yes.
So, but at the same time, you have another job and another job as an executive director
I've been working for a company for 30 years and I happen to be in a position where there's more revenue that comes into this household
because
based off of my job versus your job.
And then you also have Men Living, where you're an executive director of that. So you have all these things that prop up your masculinity. So even though in our work, I am the CEO, it's more, and I don't want to say this is more like my work because I know you're a coach and we do similar things and we've been podcasting together forever, but this tends to be a more, how would I say this, a more feminized role as a therapist or as a coach or as someone who, you know, maybe some won't see it that way, but I just think there's a lot of nuance in this.
For sure.
But bottom line is, Todd, I agree with you. I don't think I don't like that he's demasculated. I don't like a lot of women that I really admire and who have either been married or chosen not to be married. Chelsea Handler is one of them, I literally can't be in relationship with men because my personality and the amount of money I make always throws them off.
Strong women scare the crap out of many men, including me for that matter. I remember, I've said this on the podcast so many times, but our former House of Representatives person,
Nancy Pelosi.
My brain's not working yet this morning. I remember saying something like, I don't know what it's about her. I just don't like her.
I remember.
So whenever anybody says, I don't know what it is through that lens, there's something for me to learn about myself and my own judgments about women.
She demasculates me in some way. So in a way, you do have patience for it. You get triggered by it.
For sure.
But
I can help a man walk himself through that thought process. Like, okay, let's break that down.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be demasculated? So anyways, I just thought it was an interesting thing. And I do coach men, and I've shared this, that there's some men who feel some arrows that are slung from their wives, and there are words that are uttered towards them. Man up. If they start opening up their heart and getting vulnerable and she says, man up.
Or don't cry or don't break down.
That's rough. That's rough. I have a lot more compassion for that than my wife makes more money. Like, what?
Right.
So anyways.